Welcome to Cyprus Diaspora Uncovered. In this episode of Cyprus Diaspora Uncovered, journalist and East Mediterranean editor at Middle East Economic Survey, Peter Stevenson, chats to Christophoros Papachristophorou, founder and managing partner of Invel Real Estate, an independent private equity real estate firm established in 2013, focusing on value-add and opportunistic strategies. The firm holds a market-leading position in Southern Europe with assets under management exceeding 3.5 billion euros. Prior to founding Invel, Christophoros served as a managing director and global head of Deutsche Bank Opportunistic Investments, the private equity real estate arm of Deutsche Bank specialising in high-yield real estate investment strategies. During his tenure, he completed and restructured more than 60 investments with a total gross asset value in excess of $20 billion. Among other notable transactions, he led the corporate restructuring, refinancing and repositioning of the French department store Le Printemps, the acquisition, repositioning and subsequent sale of Rinascente, Italy's leading department store, and the acquisition, subsequent restructuring and sale of Newreal, then the commercial real estate subsidiary of Enel, Italy's largest power company. This session was recorded live at the Cyprus Diaspora Forum on the 8th of May 2026 at the Amara Hotel in Limassol, Cyprus.
I'll just give you a brief introduction as to who I am. I'm Peter Stevenson. I'm a journalist. I write for Middle East Economic Survey. It's an energy-based publication. And I have with me Christophoros Papachristophorou. He's the founder and managing partner of Invel Real Estate, which is one of the leading real estate investment platforms focused on Southern Europe, with around 3 billion euros in assets under management across markets, including Italy, Greece, and Cyprus. Before founding Invel in 2013, Chris spent many years at Deutsche Bank's RREEF platform, where he led major real estate investments and restructurings across Europe worth more than $20 billion. Over the course of his career, he has played a central role in some of the region's landmark real estate transactions and transformations, and pun is intended there. Landmark in Nicosia is one of those projects. Today, alongside leading Invel, he serves as executive chairman of Prodea Investments, Greece's largest real estate company. He studied economics at the London School of Economics and completed his master's degree in Milan. Is that a fair summation? I know you don't like to blow your own trumpet, so I mean, I hope that's an accurate depiction of who you are. So let's start. So what do you think has been the driving force behind that success, all of that success that I've mentioned there, and what continues to motivate you as you seek new milestones in your career, which is something that we should all be aiming for?
First of all, thank you, Peter, for taking the time to conduct this interview. And then Paul is not here, but thank you, obviously, Paul and the organizers for giving the opportunity. What drives people, I guess, changes over the years. When I left to go to the UK in the 28, 29. At that point in time, drivers entailed things like learning, developing, growing personally and professionally, and ultimately becoming financially independent. As you grow, things change, and obviously what drives you later on in your life is, it changes with that. Today, for example, what does drive me, or what excites me is be able to transfer that knowledge that I have accumulated over the years to the younger generation, to colleagues, to friends, to my own family. Yeah, well, to the extent they listen, because they don't usually listen. I have my daughter here who's
I'm sure she appreciated that comment.
Clearly, debate. I've always had healthy debates, and then I also, what I usually call is leaving a legacy behind, and that legacy can be linked to more material things like the business and continuity to the business, but also personal legacy. Who you are. What is your impact on society over the years, and how people remember you. And on that front, I do hope that people, are left with good impressions. And I know sometimes I can come across as quite tough and demanding, but at the same time, I always want to be, fair and conduct myself with utmost respect and integrity, and then also give back to society. Now, with respect to all of that, I guess, part of it comes from your DNA, and I'm saying that I keep on saying I want to take a step back and I wouldn't say retire, but let's say work less and advise more. And people laugh at me. At least my colleagues laugh at me and say, it's ha ha ha, this will not happen. But I promise you, it will happen at some point. But then on the other hand, it's also your personal circumstances. For example, when I left Cyprus, there were a number of personal circumstances that I had my back on the wall. So for me, it was a one-way street to go abroad and try to achieve as much as I can. There we are, 30 years later.
So an interesting route. I mean, just to kind of follow on that question, I'm going a bit off script here. I mean, how much of your success would you put down to, experience, perseverance? How much of it can be attributed to maybe luck, being in the right place at the right time, instinct? How much do all of these different factors play into being as successful as you've been, do you believe?
First of all, how do you define success? I don't know whether you have a view, but in my definition, I think success it's definitely not just being financially successful, but to have the combination of things that ultimately helps you be the best in what you do, or the best you can be, because we can't be everything, right? So you touch a lot of points which are very relevant, and happy to address a couple. And obviously, let's make this as more interactive as it can be. I think being at the right place at the right time is undoubtedly a very, very important. Sometimes you start and you have a goal, and you often miss that goal. And I can also give live examples and have many to give. But then it's your ability to change things around and use what you think is a challenge to an opportunity.
Flexibility.
So transforming the challenge of opportunity. And I always like to give examples because otherwise you're too theoretical. So, for example, when I finished my undergrad in the UK, I wanted to go and do an MBA in France at the INSEAD. I made an application. Then they told me, look, you need more work experience. But at the same time, I got an offer to the business school of Bocconi in Milan. And at the time, I wasn't sure whether that was the right choice. I ended up going there. And then when I ended up working with Deutsche Bank, in my group, there were 5-6 French colleagues, but there was nobody who spoke Italian or nobody who knew the country. And through that, I was able to have an accelerated growth because I was able to utilize my local skills and knowledge and language to achieve more, right? And so what initially seemed to be a challenge ended up being an opportunity. Or the other example I give is that, again, when I started my career, it was Bankers Trust, then Deutsche Bank bought RREEF, which was a real estate investment manager from the US. Initially, I helped managing director on an IPO of Canary Wharf. And we've done a very good job. So they asked me to become an equity analyst, which personally I hated it. I thought it was too boring and didn't represent me. I wanted always to be in private equity. But I did it, and for a period of time. I mean, I had a deal. I said, look, I'll do that for a year. I'll build a team. I'll teach them how to do financial analysis, but then I want to come back into private equity. But in those 12 months, I was able to meet all the CEOs and CFOs of the largest real estate corporates in Europe. So when I joined back the principal team, the private equity team, I had all those contacts that nobody else at my age or my experience have had, and that helped me have an accelerated growth. So what I want to say is that people, especially the younger people, should not be taken aback if they have a bottleneck or they stumble on something. They should try and be flexible, be driven, be tenacious, and find ways to transform that challenge into an opportunity.
Yeah, I guess not every setback is exactly that. It can be an opportunity, as you say. And speaking of young people, and what advice would you give young people looking to build ambitious careers. I mean, what does it truly take to be successful internationally, not just in Cyprus, but on the global stage? How do you see that for young people? For any young people in the audience here,
yeah, I mean, few of them just joined. So everyone's young here, so it depends how you feel. It's not how old you are, right? So I think that's what I always say: it's how you feel, and not how old your age is. So look, there are many things I can say about that. The one thing for me, it's an overarching argument. Is I've always said that it's love what you do. Because if you don't enjoy what you do and you just work to work, your limits are finite. Because especially in demanding environments, you have to sacrifice a lot, and you have to also work, put a lot of hours, work under pressure, and unless you love what you do, it is difficult to sustain that kind of lifestyle and pressure. The other thing is I don't believe in shortcuts. I think that many people have become successful, whether because they were just there at the right moment and they took advantage of an opportunity. And I mean financially successful, because as I said, for me, success is not financial. Financial is the outcome of being a successful person as a whole. So I think that those people who have become financially successful quite quickly and without having worked or learned or experienced or accumulated experiences, it's a big risk, because you can always be questioned, and then people can see through that lack of experience. So I think it's a long-term planning, and you have to be patient. You have to, as you said before, be agile, ready to adapt. And then look, I put some notes down here. I mean, I can talk about that for hours, but I'll try to be brief. That's why I put the notes. Some of the things is always be prepared. Try to go the extra mile, not just to the basics. I always say to people, don't go from just A to B. You have to be able to follow on that. Try to differentiate from your peers. So try to be different and be creative, so that people can notice you, in your environment, and say, oh, look, this person is different. It's not just one of many. Feel ownership. So feel that it's your own business, and that makes you think ahead of others, think proactively, and consequently be better than most. So look, these are few examples of many, and you cannot really, it's a cookie cutter thing. It also depends on the industry, right? So I'm talking about now more the financial services industry.
I think it overlaps into a lot of industries. I mean, I think I was listening to, was it Michael Bloomberg speaking recently, that he found himself at a very young age in his career surrounded by people who were much smarter than him, but he worked harder than everyone else, and that's through that's what brought him the success.
Actually, spot on. And for example, I love sports myself. I like to watch sports. I like to for in my free time. But I also, for example, pushed my children to do competitive sports just because I feel that teaches you many things. First of all, discipline, be always work hard to achieve, because there will always be someone better than you. And most importantly, when you fall down, to be able to pick up yourself up and carry on, because that's life. Life, it's never full of successes. And if you give up with the first challenge you have, then you won't go far in life.
No, of course. And I mean, keeping on the sports theme, obviously this isn't a sports related talk, but yeah, exactly. So I'm going to jump on that. But I mean, if you look at the most successful footballers in the world as well, Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, the one thing that stands above everything else with them is their work ethic. It's not, you can't continue to be the best in the world without having that kind of work.
Absolutely. Even though, if I may say so, it's interesting because I think they're two very different. I mean, I hope I'm not boring some of the people who don't follow football, but there's any distinction there. I mean, I think Messi's, I think his talent prevails. I think Ronaldo is more his hard work. I mean, I'll give an example because you were born and raised in the UK, and also, we support opposing teams, but I've obviously, living in Chelsea, we support Chelsea as a family. And you take Frank Lampard, who was not the most charismatic player, but he worked like 3 times harder than anybody else, and then he achieved so many things. And So I think hard work will always overcome talent. The talent will basically help you start, but without the work and the tenacity to achieve things here.
Yeah, precisely. Okay, we'll stop talking about football now.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly.
Unless people want us to continue, of course. No. But no.
Yeah, I think there's a panel later on for sports. By the way, I think I saw that in the program.
They put us on the wrong panel. I'll have a word with Paul and try and get us on that one. Anyway, let's go back to yourself. So you built much of your career abroad, as you mentioned before, coming back to Cyprus. Why do you believe international experience can be so valuable for not just for young people, but for everyone? I mean, it's not just exclusive to young people. I mean, I think it's international experience.
Well, things, first of all, are changing in Cyprus, and we'll talk a bit about Cyprus later on, if you allow me. But at least at the time where I went abroad, the idea was that you want to go to a place where you can be challenged. It's I think what defines you in life is your experiences, and therefore, if you are in an environment that provides to you this kind of multiple experiences, different challenges, different opportunities, can help you a lot. I mean, sometimes when we have group meetings and people look at me talking, I say, guys, this is all the outcome of what I learned through my life. It's not that I was born with that. It's pure transformation of knowledge, transferability of knowledge from what I've done. So I think the number one element there is work in an environment that was meritocratic, that gives the ability to grow, that you learn from others, and also you compete with others. And I personally think that competition makes you better. So if you are somewhere in a place where you have everything and you become complacent, but if it's upwards or outwards, because at least in my days, and obviously I know the world is changing and the different generations have different aspirations and different lifestyle, and the world has indeed changed in that respect. But those days, if you were not keeping up with the level you're supposed to, you're just out of a job, right? And all of these things do help you, shape you, help you learn things, and it's this kind of experience and knowledge that distinguishes you when you grow older.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to sports again, so I apologise for this to everyone, but I think I see parallels here with. So I don't know. I've met Marcos Bagdadis. I don't know if everybody knows who Marcos Bagdadis is. Tennis player, Cypriot. He went abroad. He was forced by his parents to go abroad to play tennis at the Muratoglu Tennis Academy, I think. And he got to the final of the Australian Open. He was very successful, and I think that's an indication of, you need to go abroad. You need to go test yourself. And then when he came back, unfortunately, the comforts of Cyprus, I think, seeped into his kind of approach, and he wasn't able to sustain maybe a top 20 ranking in world tennis. And often Cyprus can make you go a little soft. The weather's nice, the food is nice, life is easy, it's slow. I mean, and then I think that kind of maybe leads into the next question about, has Cyprus evolved? How has it evolved? Because you have come back and you see things closer now, and do you think that it's a place where highly ambitious people can succeed, can grow, can maybe move out of that comfort zone and complacency? And what do you think still needs to be done in Cyprus? Do you think that the current environment here does help young professionals, or any professional who has gone abroad and become successful and gained that experience, to come back here? Does it encourage people to come back?
Well, I do know Marcos very well, and it's slightly different. I mean, I don't think that it was Cyprus who.
I was sorry if I was unfair to him.
No. It was Cyprus who caused his rankings to drop. I think it was the outcome of a number of injuries. And I think he moved to Cyprus at some point also to have a better life balance and also build a family. But he was still competing at a good level. It's a long story, so let's not dwell on that. But I hear you. I mean,
that'll be our next session. The rise and fall of Marcos Pag, that is.
Okay, fair enough.
Tune in.
Look, first of all, Cyprus is very different to what it was when I left. When I left, actually, I remember to my partner at the time, my current spouse, I told her, look, I'm leaving, I'm not coming back. And she didn't like that because I think she loves her country and the sun and the weather. And
it's not bad.
Yeah, exactly. And therefore, that also goes back to one of the previous points we discussed, that you also have to adapt and reset your goals and be flexible enough to evolve and adjust to different circumstances and seize opportunities. So in 2018, I came back for different reasons, brought the whole family back from the UK. We tried for 2 years. I think in the end, we decided to stay. There were pros and cons, don't take me wrong. I mean, but Cyprus, it has become very different to what it used to be. It's undoubtedly more international. It has become more institutional. Otherwise, I would not be able to do what I do. It has become very meritocratic. I do put a lot of emphasis on that because one of the things I really disliked about this country is that it was not how good you are, it's how until the old days who you are or who you know. So that thing I think has changed. It's not perfect yet, but it's changing, and I'm clearly a huge proponent of that and advocate, and I will fight about that for as long as I can to try and change it completely if I can. And then, look, Cyprus also has some unique values. When we started the business in 2018, it was just me and the CFO, and then we hired a third person who also grew up through the ranks substantially. And then now we have an office here as the management company of 20 people, but then we also have a couple of hotels with over 1,000 employees. Although our business is very international, I mean, Cyprus is only 5% maybe of our investments in portfolio. There are certain values and areas that we count on the people we hire here. One I keep on saying always whenever I speak, it's philotimo. I think that's the love of honor, which I think is very prevalent with Cypriots. Loyalty, respect, and then you also build on the skills. I mean, we're very good in services like accounting, legal, finance, but then you do need to change, and you need to instill that kind of ownership philosophy, which before did not exist, because people were used to go to family businesses and say, okay, it's the father or the mother, and then it will be the daughter or the son, and then which is something which doesn't exist, at least with us. It's a partnership, and who is good evolves and succeeds, and who is not does not. Meritocracy, and then zero nepotism and zero. In fact, I think none of my kids will end up ever working with me, or at least I hope they won't.
You say that. I see sadness in your face when you say it.
No, that's all. Actually, I suffer myself by having to work with my father when I dislike that with every single vein in my body. So I don't want my kids to go through that. So
what did your father do?
He was in the textile business, which going back to the previous comment I made, I said that I had my back on the wall. He was, the clothing and textile business in the 70s and 80s was actually suffering a lot. Actually, no, 70s was growing a lot. 80s suffered a lot with competition from Far East and Eastern Europe. So to some extent, I inherited not value but liabilities. So that's why I had to go abroad and succeed on my own. So look, and the other big thing is that it will never have the pace of a New York or of a London, but it does give a quite good balance. And you also have certain things that are very, very valuable. For example, you can have a network and support system, whether it's parents or otherwise, that can help you. In our case, we don't have, because I lost my parents quite young, and also my wife lost her father. So my kids only have one grandparent. But being in a country which is easier to navigate through that. For example, my wife also works, which is something that she was also in Deutsche Bank and before in JP Morgan. And again, you have this kind of ability to have a more balanced life and be able to work as well, which is not so easy when you have to travel 1 hour to take one kid to play tennis, other one to do ballet. And it's impossible to do that in London or in New York, right? So, and especially when you don't have that support.
Well, yeah, I guess that goes back to how you see success as well. I guess it's the work-life balance of having a successful family life as well as a business life.
I haven't done very well. I'm trying though. I'm trying hard to make up for it.
It's always a challenge, I think, for everybody trying to get that balance. I don't think there's someone in this room who can say that they've perfected the work-life balance. Unless there is. Anyone want to put their hand up? No? Okay. Right.
You didn't give them enough time.
Well, because I think I knew the answer already. Maybe I was... But yeah. So let's move on to the next question, which is a little bit more topical, as it were. So, I mean, we're seeing a lot of rapid global shifts. We're seeing the rise of AI, energy and geopolitical crises in the Middle East. Also, the energy transition, net zero, everybody pushing for that. And I guess the question is, how do these forces reshape the real estate market that you're in, and where do you currently see the most compelling investment opportunities globally under those huge shifts? And how does Cyprus fit into that? It's a multi-layered question for you.
No. Thanks for asking the question. Try to give you a bit of insight on that. There's no doubt that there are a lot of changing and driving forces globally. We had the pandemic, a few years back, which again at the time affected a lot the demand for office space, for example.
Hopefully, there's not going to be another pandemic.
Yes, hopefully not. But mind you, at least in large corporations, it has instilled this work from home concept. So you're in New York or you're in large corporates, you have this kind of. You go, for example, in the city of London, and people have actually rotating desks. They don't have a specific office. They come in, they log in, they put a laptop, they work 3 or 4 days a week, and then they work at least one day from home. So that has changed a lot the demand for office. The other huge driver or huge change, which we have not seen the impact yet, is AI, and what would that do in both to the global economy, but also its implications on real estate. What you have, another area which, again, very relevant, is already now for years, it's e-commerce. And I do know that it's not so profound in Cyprus, but internationally, again, because of distances and all of that, most people buy online, so that affects retail. And although in a market like Cyprus or even Greece, you don't see the implications that these, let's say, macro trends have. Internationally, you do have that. So on our case, what I want to say here is that on our case, even though we could find interesting office opportunities in Cyprus, especially because you have a lot of companies relocating to Cyprus, because we do have international investors and they look at the trends on the global basis, it will be fighting an uphill battle to convince them that, look, we will be investing in office, even though office, according to them, is actually being marginalized. I mean, therefore, we exclude office, we exclude retail. Again, opportunistically, we might find something which is very appealing and we might do it, but it's not a long-term thing we are investing into. On the contrary, the areas where seem to be appealing, and luckily, I'm saying it's pure luck, it's not by design. It's they're very prevalent in Cyprus, in Greece, in Italy, in Spain, which is because we're a Southern European investor, private equity firm. Is hospitality and the living sector. All of these countries have a significant the impact of tourism is quite relevant, and therefore investing in that in the hospitality sector is quite important. Same thing with the residential and the living sector. But even there, what we're trying to do to differentiate from the competition goes back to, you asked about sectors before, and say being different, is to try and pick niche markets or within those macro themes of the living sector and the hospitality sector. For example, we now own a hostel company in Italy, which has expanded in Greece. Now they have a hostel in Greece as well. We have 5, 6 in Italy, and we're looking to Spain as well to capture part of the younger population that travels around and backpackers that they move around Europe. On the other front, we're also going to exactly the opposite extreme, which is the more luxury and more lifestyle hospitality with experiences that attract people. And it's not just going to stay in a room, but have a number of other areas like wellness, F&B, branded F&B, sport facilities, and others that would make people go there, stay there, and enjoy their time. And then on the living sector, for example, we have set up and again, that's a demographic trend where people rent more than own, and they also like smaller houses and apartments. We have built the first institutional rental platform in Greece, which we're going to try and replicate in Cyprus and in Italy. So essentially, it's a co-living concept where you have newly built accommodation, energy efficient, going back to the issue of energy. People have all their utilities covered, and then they have some amenities that makes, again, their life easier. And then it's ideal for young couples, young professionals, but sometimes even for older people that they want to have a more community. So and which goes to the next topic, which is assisted and senior living. Again, aging population. Last week we had a conference at the Park Lane, which was talking about longevity, which, by the way, is not only living longer but also living better. And Marcos, by the way, was one of the speakers, but that is mentioned for us. And it's undoubtedly a macro trend that you see in Europe in particular of an aging population. So again, capturing this kind of macro themes and then finding the right people to back up that can execute within those segments.
We were talking about work-life balance before.
She exactly agreed. Exactly, I was going to say. Spot on. The events is not necessarily what would drive an investment decision. I mean, having big events in those areas, but what those events do for those areas. So, for example, in Cortina, which you mentioned, doing the Olympics, I think the previous ones were 66, so it was like 60 years ago. It's a revival of a destination which has a lot of history. And I would see actually that trend a lot, not only in our region, but also globally, of people trying to go back to and revive, legacy or legendary or iconic locations and rebuild those to the old grandiose that they had. So we felt, and we still feel that Cortina will become again a destination not only for Italians but for international people, and will be of the level and magnitude of places like Courchevel, for example. So that decision was at the back of that, not necessarily because the Olympics were taking place, but what will be the aftermath of the Olympics and the revival of that destination and that village. Okay, of course it has great skiing as well there. You also see other brands happen, both hospitality brands. You have a Mandarin opening, you have a Six Senses, you have branded F&B, Zuma Open, Beef Bar. In fact, something which I also tell to people, and I do not consider, okay, we do own the Park Lane, right? But for me, the Amara is a great thing to have, and what Amara offers, because it makes Cyprus a destination. I do not consider other, let's say, what others will say rival project as a rival, but more of a a companion into changing
Complementary.
changing the destination. Similarly, with Nicosia, the Hilton was an iconic hotel with a lot of history.
It was a landmark.
It was a landmark indeed. Unfortunately, it was it had become a horrible property. So we had to spend a lot of time, a lot of money to redo it. I'm exceptionally happy with the result. And we look forward to be hosting important events like now Cyprus has the presidency, and the other day we had Macron, you had Meloni, and Kyriakos Mitsotakis and others that stayed there. So all of these things are actually very relevant. So you're right that choosing properties that we think have some history, and around those you can create more demand is quite important. We always try to, and it's actually typical real estate, I would say 101, is to try and find segments of the market where there's an imbalance between demand and supply. I think the anathema of the real estate business is actually to invest in an area where there's a lot of supply, because that ultimately will drive down demand, occupancy, and values. So I think when you have more demand than supply, or have constrained supply, is actually what you look for, and there's clearly an opportunity there. Look, we are looking at it. It's difficult to find plots, unfortunately, that make sense. And with construction costs having risen so dramatically with inflation, after we had one war, now we have another war, energy crisis, it's quite challenging to be able to build affordable housing and not lose money, at least in this part of the world. Are we giving up on the effort? No, we're not. But it has, unfortunately, significant challenges, but there is undoubtedly an opportunity. So that's what we're trying. We're trying first with the co-living. And although the rents are, not cheap, but we do try to complement those with other hidden costs that the tenants do not pay. For example, energy, electricity, which we provide for free, to make it more appealing, more affordable, and easier for them. But also, unfortunately, at least as far as the main business is concerned, we're also in the business of making money. So we do have to do something which is financially make sense. Now, on a personal basis, that's a different story.
So congratulations, Christophoros, on your very successful journey that you shared with us. I have more of a technical question. I'm an investment professional myself. So obviously, you did very well in your early years as a fund manager in real estate, capturing the tremendous opportunity in Greece through Invel and Printemps back in the Grexit years, obviously. And from my understanding, the strategy of the group has shifted more to maybe collecting better yields or development profits. However, given the early innings, how the group was founded with the generational opportunity in Greek real estate, and given that we don't have that kind of opportunity today in terms of to make generational returns on real estate. I mean, there are opportunities to have a good yielding property on an unlevered basis, or capture some development opportunities like you answered to the previous participant. Do you feel that there are such opportunities in the regions that you are focusing on? And if there aren't, would you be willing to, let's say, liquidate part of the portfolio and look for a better entry point? Because entry point in real estate does dictate future returns. Thank you.
Another outstanding question. In fact, we do try to, as the nature of the business, take advantage of what we call market dislocation.
I think they heard us talking about
exactly.
Bangladesh.
So you're absolutely spot on that we do try to take advantage of market dislocation. For example, when we started our business, it was the sovereign and banking crisis in Southern Europe, and we invested in a meaningful way in Greece. We then invested in hospitality in the middle of COVID. So that's what we try to do. There is absolutely no doubt that the market, at least in this part of the world, has grown in values. Interestingly enough, yesterday I was in Athens and I had exactly the same question from one prospective investor in our fund asking, isn't the values now have reached their peak? And we have sold a lot. I mean, I don't know where you followed the press. Back in December, we sold almost €1.5 billion of office and retail space in Greece at full market value. I think it was a shock to the market. It was a shock to my own team in Greece because they didn't expect that to happen. But again, our job is to maximize value for our investors, right? Having said that, though, and that's why I made the comment about the niche markets. If you pick areas where you have constrained supply, or where you are a pioneer because nobody else has done it before and you can capture a changing market. Let's look at student accommodation. Just this morning we're closing on a trade in Italy. There is a significant imbalance between demand and supply in international students. Again, following Brexit, a lot of the European capitals actually attracted a lot of students from abroad, and there's not enough supply of student accommodation, and we are doing that in a market with otherwise would say, oh well, Milan is very expensive, and it is, but there are not enough dwellings for students. As we speak today, there's about 100,000 international students in Italy, and there's only 8,000 dwellings, and there's another 7,000 in supply. And then I'm using this example for a second reason. The specific developer got into financial difficulties because of delays and cost overruns, and therefore needed capital to be able to basically buy his existing loans, which was in default, and support his business plan. So what does that mean? It means that A, we have to look at areas where they have this kind of imbalance, and B, try to be constantly agile and find this kind of opportunities where there is a liquidity constraint or an imbalance or a dislocation that will enable us to come in at an attractive point in the capital structure, if not on the real estate value. So in this particular case, we're providing a convertible loan, which will end up giving us quite attractive returns. So long answer to a good question is that we have to remain vigilant and also on our toes to try and find those point of attractive investments that are done on a deal by deal basis, and pick them carefully. And then last point I want to make is that we do intend to expand more into the Iberia Peninsula. So we will be opening an office in Madrid, and we'll be looking at Spain and Portugal as well, again, to try and open up the universe of opportunities.
I have a question. So as one gets a little bit older in life, you start looking ahead and thinking about the future. And as the demographics, for example, in Cyprus and in Europe, older age, I've seen a big niche in the market where the need for old age living, but not what we have currently here, but what we see in the movies, for example, in the States, in New Zealand, in Australia, where there's living, but there's doctors and nurses on the premises, there's joint activities for their elderly. Is this a kind of market that is beneficial here? Because I think Cyprus is lacking that type of living for the elderly, affordable commune. I don't know what you call them. Yeah.
Look, there's an ongoing debate about this since my days at Bank Trust and Deutsche vis-a-vis assisted living, whether that includes also nursing homes, which I believe you're referring to. I have a view. I'm not saying I'm right, and my view is that those houses or projects should be very close to urban locations because ultimately the grandchildren want to be close to grandparents. They want to visit them, and for the more elderly, the feeling of a community is quite important. Therefore, I'm not so sure whether Cyprus is on that front. Cyprus is obviously challenged because it's a small country, and I do not expect that you're going to have older people from Britain or Germany or Switzerland relocating to or coming to Cyprus to be part of a project like that. On the other hand, it does offer great weather and some other, let's say, it's more hospitable, more social. People talk to each other, and it's more open. And it's a more, let's say, friendly society. On the other hand, you also have, but the flip side of that is actually the medical support, where I think we have some ways to go here in Cyprus. I think there is quite a lot of investment needed on the healthcare system, and therefore, again, having a project with people that might need immediate attention from intensive care because something might happen to them, it's an issue. And at least as far as we're concerned, that's a risk we do not want to take. So we would not, we will look, and we are looking at purely senior living, but those are in urban location outside of Athens, outside of Milan. But we will not, we do not intend to invest into projects that engage with healthcare as well, just because the risk there is quite high.
I'm not sure what's happening with time, because no one seems to have come to tell us that we need to wrap up and get out.
But you also have double attendance before, so.
Yeah, so we've seemed to have attracted a lot of people. So maybe we keep going. I think. Do we have any other questions? Anybody? We did ask him to ask a question.
No. It's okay. Look, I can tell you the following. I mean, we said about relocating to Cyprus. I mean, that's a bit of a fake thing. I'm a fake relocator because I travel and I'm abroad, like say 200 days a year, 250 days a year. So, so I'm not spending that much time. But when I'm here, I'm probably one of the best clients of the Matsuhisa. I spent New Year's Eve at the City of Dreams, not at Park Lane, one year. So I think it's about changing philosophy and changing mentality. And these are the things that when you have lived abroad, as you said before, we mentioned about the US and the collaboration in Las Vegas, you tend to appreciate. On the other hand, look, that's also the problem of a small country. Like it's a small country. The other day I had an argument with our CEO. I told him, look, please do not take people from these groups that are friends of mine, even if we don't see them every day. But they say, but they do it with us all the time. So at least as far as we're concerned, I'm trying to change that, and I'm really trying. And I really try to instill a kind of collegial, collaborative mentality. Of course, it takes two to tango, and therefore it's something which ultimately will change. I hope it will change. I think as the market is becoming bigger, and people acknowledge that we are not competitors, but actually we are making the country a better destination, and therefore, if Cyprus becomes a better destination, then everybody is to gain about that. And I think it's a matter of time. That's my view. I mean, I have seen change. Clearly, there has been change, but I also understand where you're coming from, and undoubtedly, it's an area of needs further improvement.
No, thank you, Bambo, for the questions. No, it's all right. Anyway, I think we'll wrap it up now. Thank you, Christophoros, for your time. It was very enlightening. I think everyone here who was here will agree. And yeah, I think it's a big plus that the room has filled since the beginning. I think it's an indication of, hopefully it's an indication of how interesting the conversation was.
Yeah, well, or people already had the coffees and therefore they got the energy to come and bear with us.
That's also a very likely possibility.
Thank you for conducting this. Thank you for the organizers. Thank you for being there.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Cyprus Diaspora Uncovered. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts for more inspiring conversations that are shaping Cyprus's global future. You can also explore more episodes on our website and selected video interviews on our YouTube channels.